From athletes to authors, entertainers to innovators, we connect with those who help shape our culture. Join us in revealing stories of their lives and backgrounds, their triumphs and tragedies that molded them into who they are today. Authentically off-script and personally illuminating, this is Audibles with Jason Scarborough. This week on Audibles, Stace Hester.
So November 25th, 1958, that's when we began writing your story. Cleveland, Mississippi. So how would you describe growing up there in the Delta?
Well, I was from Greenville. My mother I was the fifth of 5 kids. And the reason I was born in Cleveland because it was cheaper to have a baby in Cleveland. So they drove up there to have the baby. You know, being the fifth of 5, I always watched my older siblings, the 3 sisters and a brother, when they do something crazy, I'm smart enough to know that I don't need to do that because my dad was a big man. He was a farmer. My mother stayed at home. And, but yeah, I had a great childhood because, you know, I was able to play ball. My dad was one of those guys that could have been an athlete, but he got out and started working like a lot of men back in the day. He could not go to college. He became a farmer, you know, right after he got out of high school. And I just was able to play ball. I mean, that's what I did. And he built a big house for us out south of Greenville. And that's where I grew up. And ended up going to Greenville Christian and playing ball. But he kind of lived his life through me because he didn't get to play college ball. And I was very fortunate. But I was a blend of somewhat athletic because I played 4 sports in high school. And I ended up playing 3 sports in college. But I was always a hard worker. I just worked. And that's what kind of my whole coaching career was shaped by my upbringing, being able to play sports, being able to enjoy, just work hard and that kind of. And once I got out of high school and go to Delta State, after I played basketball and then track, and then I switched to baseball, playing for the legendary Boo Ferris. You know, not many people have a chance to play for him. He was they called him the Southern gentleman, and he was such a great man, and you know, he was kind of like a second dad to me, and he took care of me, and that's kind of how I got into coaching in baseball, because without his, you know, putting me kind of through his program, and I did work study under him, and I helped work on field, so a lot of these things were kind of lining up for me to be a successful baseball coach, because I'm a field guy. I mean, you know, I love for people to come to your field and say, God, look at that baseball field. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of the old age of coaches. And a lot of those guys that played at Delta State, you know, they put out more baseball coaches than anybody, you know. And so we all took pride in facilities in our program and trying to win, you know. And I've been more than blessed from that end of it. But again, God's just blessed me. I mean, big time. That's all you can say. And even during my career, I mean, I thought about getting out a few times, but things would always come back to where I was, you know, knew I was meant to be a coach, you know. So, but it's all been good. It's been good.
It's interesting to hear you say that about your dad kind of lived through you because he didn't play college ball, but it sounds like you're carrying a lot of the things you learned from your dad, being a farmer, being a hard worker. Right. So you're still carrying on your dad's
exactly
work ethic and everything else. So he is getting to literally live through you in some ways.
You're right. He always allowed me, you know, I never ever told me how to get a job. He always sent me to basketball camps and baseball, playing all the time, you know, from spring to summer. It never was an option for me to give up any sporting event to go work or do something else. It was always first for me. So, you know, I know he enjoyed me playing basketball and the things I did. Then the baseball, of course, he was so involved because he lived between Greenville and Cleveland, so in that area where he farmed. So it was good for him. And so even as I coached, you know, my first job as a head coach, I was state champion and beat Jackson Prep my first 2 years. So I was like, man, there's nothing to this, you know. Of course, then 3 years later, they fired me, you know, but that's just part of coaching, you know. I guess that's the good thing about it. I've been at different schools. I've never been let go because of my coaching ability. I've been let go because I'm not a politically correct kind of coach. Mm-hmm. I don't play politics, and I don't know where that came from because, you know, my dad was such a good guy, but And when it comes to, people trying to tell you what to do in your occupation, I've always said, I'm not going to come to your job and tell you what to do. So I'm doing my job. And if I wasn't winning and making kids play hard and successful and acting right, because that's all part of it. The kids have a responsibility to me to respect what I'm doing and what I'm trying to do for them. And I do respect them as long as they do what I've asked them to do. If they don't, then we got an issue, because that's what coaches do. That's kind of motivating your kids and trying to get them on the same page as you. So I've always said I'm trying to sell to them what I'm trying to do. And so along the way, I've had some success, and I've tried to get them to understand it. And of course, again, in high school baseball, you try to keep it simple because you can kind of overcoach sometimes, and it's above their heads. But like I said, I've just been blessed to where the system I had in place. I mean, you think about from high school at Washington, then to go to New Hope, and 4 years later we go 43-0. I mean, how does that happen? How does that happen with that? I call it God just picked us to say we're going to reward you guys and these coaches because we're going to give you something nobody else has had. 43-0 is just unheard of. And so, but I have been blessed, and so have some good players, and but again, it's just hard work and keep your nose clean and do what I asked you to do, and let's go play ball, I want
to go back to your childhood for a moment, because you talked about sports being involved in your life early. Was there something that maybe wasn't connected to sports or baseball that maybe you wanted to be when you grew up? Was there anything else?
When I was a kid, I started playing when I was I remember 5 years old. They didn't have T-ball. We didn't have coach pitch. At 5 years old, I lived at the park, because I just love sports. And I guess that was just inborn. I just knew that I had to be around something. Mm-hmm. My older siblings were always playing, like basketball. I'd go to the gym when I could barely pick up a ball and throw it up there. A lot of times you wouldn't even get close. You maybe hit the net. So that's good, I'm getting closer. But when I was 5, I started catching for a team. The catching gear was bigger than me, but as an early age, I knew I wanted to play sports. So that always led me to play everything. And look, what I loved, this is unheard of now, you go from football to basketball to baseball and track, and then baseball again in the summer, and then basketball camps and whatever you did. And it's just, you're always busy, but you were busy doing something different, which didn't get you bored. And we can get off on this too, but this select baseball now, it's not good. And I call it daddy ball. There is some select ball going on, which guys are picked, like my JT Ginn kid that played for me at Brandon. I mean, he was selected because he was a stud. But some of these guys go and play because it's just what they do, to pay all this money to go play. But if you don't correct your faults, and fundamentally, that's what I try to teach a lot of fundamental baseball. If you go and do that over and over again in the summer in a select ball, how are you getting any better? You're not correcting your mistakes. And that's what we do. That's what a good coach should do. You see what's wrong with the kid, you try to get him to work on different drills to correct that, and then they can put it in the field of play, But I always try to make my practices where they were under pressure. That's why I'm hands-on, let's get after it, no excuses. And so I think that's why I've been able to have success. But I think growing up, I always tried to be the best player I could be. And I had to struggle some because I was, I went through my growing pains. When you go from, this tall to shoot up 3 or 4 inches in 1 year, you're kind of, I remember my dad saying, boy, what's wrong with you? Because I wasn't in my body. It's like I was uncoordinated. Mm-hmm. So after I grew into that, it became a lot better for me because then I was taught to produce and do things like he wanted me to do. So there were some tensions there because he's like, he couldn't understand it. I sure couldn't understand it because I didn't know why I couldn't move like I should have moved, you know what I'm saying, because I had long legs and stuff. But, with the height has definitely been to my advantage, whether it was basketball or running track or, playing baseball, of course, as a pitcher at Del State. So it's always been to my advantage to have some height, It's hard to hide in the crowd with my size too. But it's been good. But yeah, my dad was a big influence on that. And I was glad that I could play and be successful and watch his eyes light up when I did well, So that was really good for me.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
It has often been said that home is where the heart is. It's where hard-working and dedicated people form the fabric of a thriving community. At Covington County Hospital, it's our priority to help keep our community safe, healthy, and moving. With our primary care clinics and services, we are working to keep you healthy. Because home is where the heart is. Home is where family matters. Covington County Hospital, where your health care matters.
At Atmos Energy, we believe affordable, reliable, and efficient natural gas is essential to achieving a low-carbon energy future. We're committed to helping protect the environment by providing smart choice solutions to help customers reduce energy use and lower their carbon footprint. Get a rebate up to $600 off qualifying high-efficiency natural gas appliances, smart thermostats, and weatherization upgrades. Together, we're fueling our energy future. Atmos Energy, your natural gas company.
Our farm's amber waves of grain become your tasty creations in the kitchen. From a bushel of wheat comes the flour you need to enjoy the breads, cakes, cereals, and pastas we all love so much. And even if you aren't a world-renowned chef, wheat grown in Mississippi is used in many of the foods you buy on the grocery store shelves. Wheat, just one of the many commodities a Mississippi farmer grows for you. The Farm Families of Mississippi.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
You mentioned going to Delta State and playing for legendary coach Boo Ferris. You actually went on a basketball scholarship and then switched to baseball while at Delta State. So what caused the shift to go from basketball to baseball?
When I was a high school senior, I was one of the best players around Greenville, and they had just hired a new coach at Delta State, a guy named Mel Hankinson, and so I was kind of the token kid they signed from the area.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and of course private school basketball back in the day was not nearly as good as public school. But I did play at Greenville Christian, and I was really good, and I averaged about 25 points a game before the three-pointer. I mean, you couldn't even dunk when I was in high school, you know, no three-point line, no dunking. But I was able to have a lot of success, and so he signed me, and I played a lot my freshman year. My sophomore year, he brought in a lot more guys, and it kind of became like, okay. Because my freshman year, I went and ran track after basketball. Well, he didn't like that because I was used to playing multiple sports. And my good friend, Randy Meganson, was my roommate. He got killed in a car wreck in January of my freshman year. And so that was kind of a life-changing event for me. Mm-hmm. So from then on, I started going over to the baseball field to be around those guys. And so it's kind of just, it was a God thing, is that, you know, when that happened and my basketball career kind of was put back because I wasn't given a chance, it's like, okay, I'm gonna go somewhere where I kind of walked on. I gave my full ride scholarship up. I said, I'm gonna go walk on in baseball. Coach Ferris got me on work study, and I got a Pell Grant, and but that kind of led to me in my way I work, because I had to prove that I could play baseball. And I had not played baseball in a couple of years. I had not even picked one up. So it was good that I could go play a sport and be a contributor. I guess Coach Ferris thought so much of me when he wrote a book, and Rick Cleveland was the guy that wrote it. I had a section in his book about me, how I became a baseball player. So that meant a lot to me that Coach Ferris thought enough of me and what I had done on the baseball field to put me in his book. So I always have a special place in my heart for Coach Ferris, because I don't know that I'd be coaching baseball now if it weren't for how those things lined up. And again, I think it's a God thing. You know, I don't argue what happens. I just know that God has a direct influence on everything you do. And so I don't question that stuff. Even one guy said, when I got fired at New Hope, after 18 years of that success, 552 wins, all the national rankings, all the state championships, he said he admired the way I handled it. I said, well, look, I'm not one of those guys that's going to have a pity party. I don't throw pity parties. If it happens, and I've been fired before, I go get another job. And that's when I got the call to come to Brandon. And 6 years at Brandon, which was kind of interesting, but I had some good players and I had some guys and got to coach guys in different parts of the state, so again, I can't say, hey, poor me, because I've been successful everywhere I've been. So I'm just touching a different group of kids from different parts of the state now. And now, after you get through with public school, you're in private school, and it's still baseball. I don't have a JT again, but I do have kids that are wanting to play. And that's, in the end of the day, you try to make those kids, whoever they are, better baseball players, So it's all been good. I can't complain.
Coach Ferris is one of those larger-than-life figures here in Mississippi. Even if you're not a sports nut,
Right.
who Coach Ferris is. His impact goes beyond
sure.
the baseball field, for sure. He was known for treating people very, very well,
Yeah.
just being a better human than really a coach or a player. How would you describe the entire experience of playing for Coach Ferris?
Well, Coach, the way he handled players, and he would always, call them in and talk to them man to man. Mm-hmm. He would recruit good kids, good players, good guys. And you could tell the guys that didn't fit into his kind of scheme of things, because I didn't realize this till later, that he always got guys that either were turned down by State or Ole Miss, mm-hmm. had a chip on the shoulder, but he could make them become really good players because they wanted to prove that they were better than what those people thought when they didn't give them a scholarship. I remember guys from different parts of the state that came in and, they just came in and worked. So I think he recruited those kids that were good kids, had good family life. Because, it was all one big family for Coach Ferris. He didn't want to have to worry about you when you weren't on the baseball field. And he told you that. If you keep your nose clean, he'll do everything for you. And he'll take care of you. But if you got in trouble, and I'd seen kids get kicked off, and he hated it. You know the story about John Grisham when he cut him. Mm-hmm. He cut him and said, "Oh, John, stick with the books." Well, he didn't know that he was going to become one of the greatest writers in the world. But he was just such a big influence on everybody that played for him. And what was amazing about Coach Ferris is that he could remember everything about you, your birthday, your kids' names. He might not see you for 5 years. He could recall you after he met you one time. So he was just a special human being that had a special mind that could remember, and the loyalty to his players and people that he knew. It was amazing how good he was.
So do you have a favorite Coach Ferris story that you can share with us on camera?
Well, I guess I never experienced failure kind of in high school. Mm-hmm. I go get this full scholarship. And Coach Ferris worked at the foundation department there. And because my roommate had died, he was trying to check up on me because I was still playing basketball. I mean, you got to remember, I'm an 18-year-old freshman in college, and my roommate just get killed in a car wreck by a drunk. And I didn't have that roommate anymore. Coach Ferris put a senior in the room with me that was a baseball player just to make sure he took care of me. And so he saw my pain my second year when I was not playing basketball a lot. And it was like, there's that father figure. He comes to me, and we kind of mutually agreed that, hey, Coach, I want to be around baseball players. So it was kind of his idea for me to come play baseball for him. And so that gave me a lot of, self-respect, and hey, I'm going to work and show him that, I'm not going to embarrass him by any means, but it took me a while because, look, when you hadn't pitched, I mean, we played maybe 13 to 14 games in high school. And when I played American Legion, I played first base. And I was trying to hit at Del State. And I never forget, after 3 weeks when he told me to come on out for baseball, I was trying to be a first baseman, which I could play good. But the hitting part, I said, Coach, I don't, after 3 weeks, I said, Coach, I don't think I can play first anymore. He said, "Oh, Stace," he said, "you can't hit that curveball." And he was right. I mean, I could not hit a curveball because if you don't prepare yourself when you're younger to hit a curveball, you can't just get to college that you can hit it. So from then on, he taught me how to pitch. And I was just an athletic kid, 6'5", lean, machine, could run forever because of basketball. And so he just got me under his wing and just taught me how to pitch. And so a lot of the things that I teach now is because of Coach Ferris, And that's the thing, baseball has changed, but then again, has it really? Things that people are trying to teach now, I know we're more knowledgeable, but back in the day, like Coach Ferris said, those greats that played and rode the trains, you know, your Bob Fellers, how they get to throw 100 before the radar guns? They just threw. Nolan Ryan, they just go and throw. That's how you build up an arm, a long toss. And so those things that I still use now, trying to get the kids to buy in. But see, a lot of kids now want to cut corners. They want to take some supplements. They want to think they can lift weights by making themselves throw harder, you know. But the arm is a different animal. You're going to take care of it and you mistreat it, it's going to hurt your feelings because you're going to have surgery, you know. So I just think that, you know, what I learned from him was invaluable, and I carry it as my coaching style today.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
The fabric of any community is its people. It's the commitment to hard work and to be our best. It's where you know your neighbor by name. It's where family is important. At Covington County Hospital, we are your family and friends. That's why your healthcare is important to us. From emergency room visits to primary care to behavioral health, we want to make sure that healthcare is available when you need it. Covington County Hospital, where your healthcare matters.
Up before the dawn and home long after the sun sets. We pass this farm work ethic on to our children, too. They have their chores just like yours, but we also raise animals. Taking care of these animals helps them understand just how important what we do on this farm is for their future and Mississippi's.
Another way Mississippi farmers grow what's important to your life, the farm families of Mississippi.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
When it comes to choosing energy for your family and your home, make the smart choice with natural gas from Atmos Energy. It's efficient and reliable energy that's essential for today and generations to come. You can count on affordable natural gas to help you save money and keep you comfortable while fueling your dream home. So make the smart choice and talk to a builder today about including natural gas. Together, we're fueling our energy future. Atmos Energy, your natural gas company.
So you leave Delta State, graduate from Delta State, 1981, and then your first head coaching position, you talked about it earlier.
Well, I played in 82. I was a graduate student. I had one more year left, so I went to the College World Series with Delta State in Riverside, California. We finished third in the nation, which is good. And then, you know, I probably could have pitched some minor league and stuff, but you know, I'm 22, you know, I've got a wife and 2 kids, and it's time to get a job. So I tried to farm with my dad for 3 years. My dad said, come on and farm with me, because I'd been in education from, you know, first grade to 5 years in college. And it's like, okay, let me try something different. And I did, and it was an experience, because I mean, you know, we were farmers. We weren't planters. Planters were known as the guys that owned their own land and they had plenty of money. I was a farmer. We had to work hard, and if the crops didn't make it, you were in bad shape. So after 3 years, I said, I'm going to get a teaching job. My dad supported. He knew that I needed to get back into what I love to do. So got a job at Washington School, my rival, when I was at Greenville Christian School, and able to win instantly there, you know, and had some success. And I guess, you know, maybe people say, well, maybe you shouldn't have won so fast. I said, well, how do you not win when you got some good players, and I was able to really get them excited about the game, and we won. But you know, the problem is that, like in coaching baseball, is that there's too many people who know too much about the game. So, I mean, after my 5th year there, I was fired, you know, and then all of a sudden, you know, that was devastating to me, because I'd never been told you're not wanted anymore at a school, you know? And it was like, as a coach, you know, I knew they're not playing. Athlete was different. But as a coach, when you're successful and then you make some people mad, and all of a sudden, we need to get rid of him. I never forget a guy that fired me at Washington School said, he said I had a anger problem. I said, no, I've got a competitive problem. Because when I get on kids, it's because they're not doing what I ask them to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm so old school in that, I didn't hesitate to get on a kid because that's what I was doing as a player. And that made me thrive and work harder. If my coach was disappointed in me, I kind of got mad at myself because then I made myself work harder. So I couldn't understand why people are always upset because you get on kids. I mean, it's not like I don't like them. I don't get up in the morning and say, I'm going to pick on little Johnny today. If you don't do what I ask you to do, it's my job as a coach to correct you. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of has carried with me in my whole coaching career. A lot of people don't want me to coach because I'm tough on the kids. Even when I was at Brandon, I was told I can't say anything to the kids. I say, what are you talking about? You can't get on the kid. I said, you kidding? If a kid's doing something wrong, I can get on to him. No. So that became where I'm thinking, okay, maybe this coaching's not for me. But it seemed like every time that I would leave a job or get taken out of a job, like I said, I've never been fired for not winning. I've had to tone it down. People are different now. I'm not as tough as I used to be, but I still want kids to know that, hey, because when I was at New Hope, when I got fired after all that success, people said, oh, you intimidate kids. Well, good for me. If I intimidate kids where they go and work and play hard, how can you average 30 wins a year for 18 years there and all the success I have without kids, not necessarily, they don't have to like me, they just respect what I'm doing and our program, And so it was a challenge to every year trying to, have a competitive team because you had built this monster. And I said, y'all got to be the one feeding it. Every year you got to try to reproduce your successful season and try to win a state championship. And some people say, well, you take it too seriously. Well, not really. You're teaching kids how to manage their emotions, how to manage their ability to work harder. And you got to try to tell them to manage their parents because, parents don't see things the way kids sometimes see. Mm-hmm. And I always got tickled when a parent would say, I want to come talk to you, but I don't want my kid to know. No, it's the kid we're talking about. So I had a policy where if you want to talk to me, your kid was going to be right there with you. And people couldn't stand that because parents wanted to kind of talk to you behind the scenes. But if your kid is what you're worried about, well, how come your kid's not in there? Because that way he can answer some questions that maybe you didn't ask him at home, when there's a problem going on. So, but I'm different. I know a lot of coaches nowadays will say, oh my gosh, I was just named Coach of the Year last year for the private school, and I talked to some of the young coaches coming up, and as I would tell them things like this, they were like, ooh, how can you say that? Why not? They know how I am. I'm going to be, hands-on. We're going, if you got a problem with me as a player, you come talk to me, I don't need your parents to come talk to me. I coach you, But a lot of people know that that's kind of out of line, it's not the cool way to do it nowadays, but I've never been one that kind of follows the
status quo.
The status quo. That's right.
You've definitely never been that.
I never have.
For sure.
But, you can't argue with my success either,
No. You talked about Washington School. You did win a couple of titles there, back-to-back titles.
Back-to-back.
In 87 and 88.
Yep.
Then you're on to New Hope. And I feel like early on in your career, this is where the legend of Stace Hester really started to take off when you got there in 91. Your time at New Hope, how would you describe your time there?
What's special about that too is that I developed kids and I tried to become, you get fired your first time, I go to New Hope and it's strictly a New Hope is a baseball community. Mm-hmm. They had a lot of success. They've always had players to play. So God put me there, and how I got to New Hope from Greenville, I don't know, in a public school job. I knew when I got fired at Washington, I said, I need to get in a public school to start getting my retirement. And so when I get over there, the field was like a cow pasture. It was awful. So I immediately started working so people could see that, hey, this guy's a worker. I made a beautiful facility. It was so pretty that Del State and Birmingham Southern played there for like 8 or 10 years. I mean, they'd come in there and play. And how many high schools could host college teams to play? So I think our kids really bought into what I was selling because my fourth year, we go 37-4 against Petal, one of the best teams I've ever seen on the team. on the field. You know, they were loaded. We lost to them in the state championship. And then the next year we go 43-0. And then next year we go 38-4. Next year like 37-5. It was like 150-13 in a 4-year span, which is crazy. And getting nationally ranked all the time. And so I think our kids really, you know, took pride in the fact that every year they were going to kind of keep that tradition going after 43-0. Because, you know, we got close year before in 95, but 96, 97, 98, won again in 99 and 98. I mean, it was like, okay, we got something going. And I take more pride now that when kids that play for me in those years, now they'll either call me or text me or send me an email saying, Coach, I figure out now why you were so tough on me. Because see, they got kids that are playing. And they're like trying to get their kids to do the right thing and play hard, keep your nose clean, you know. And that was my job, is try to make sure they were a total package. Yeah, winning is great, but I'd rather see a guy become a better young man. Like now, I'm getting to see the fruits of my labor, because now guys saying, Coach, yeah, we had our 20th reunion not too long ago of the 43-0 team. And that's when I told them, I said, guys, I can't tell you why we went 43-0. You know, we were lucky. We won like 12 ball games by 1 run. We won a bunch of them coming back, you know. I just told them, I said, I think God picked this team and you players and rewarded us coaches by saying, hey, maybe y'all been good. Maybe we're going to let y'all have a season to remember that nobody else could ever match, you know. So I think it was a special bond, but everything was good. I started seeing kids in about 05. We had such a great run. Won it again in 03. And we had some great teams. I mean, and so I started seeing it get different, and that kids that want to work. Parents made excuses. Hester's too hard on them. Hester's this, Hester's that. It's like, come on, man. This is the way I am. You're winning. If you don't like it, you know, then, and that's what happened. Superintendent son played for me, and he didn't like it because I didn't play him enough. And so things just kind of lined up that then I got fired in 09. But, you know, again, it was a great 18 years. And for the first time in 14 years, I actually went back to New Hope the other day.
Really?
My former players had kids that are playing now. They begged me to come back. And so it was kind of tough, you know, because when you built a program and a facility and you're one of the kings of Mississippi baseball, and then they tell you they don't want you anymore, it was kind of tough, you know. My wife's one that had it tougher because, you know, heck, she had to get on medicine. I said, I'm not going to let them win. If I get on medicine, they think it's bothering me. It's not going to bother me because I'm going to land on my feet and go somewhere else. And that's when Brad Peterson called me to come to Brandon, and everything worked out good. And I had some great teams, don't get me wrong. We played hard and we did a lot of good things, you know. Coach of the year a couple of different times, which is crazy for us, you know, not to win a state championship, but we sure tried, you know, hard. But anyway, then after, you know, if you get through it, Brandon, you just got to go the private school route. And so, you know, that's what I've been kind of bouncing around. But I think I found a good home right now.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
Hi, I'm Erica Bedwell, the Director of Rehab at Covington County Hospital. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services says you have a right to choose the swing bed program that's right for your loved ones. Our patients experience a comforting, supportive, and healing environment in large private rooms. Our swing bed staff is highly skilled and includes board-certified physicians, practitioners, and experienced nursing staff, all working alongside physical, occupational, and speech therapist staff to return your loved ones to the quality of life they deserve.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
Between the blue sky and green grass, there's a Mississippi cattleman making sure the food you need is on your local grocery store shelves. Whether it's a big juicy steak or hamburgers for your backyard cookout, Our food starts right here, because for these cattlemen, it's not just a job, it's caring for the animals that make up our nation's food supply. Just one of the many commodities a Mississippi farmer grows for you, the farm families of Mississippi.
At Atmos Energy, we believe affordable, reliable, and efficient natural gas is essential to achieving a low-carbon energy future. We're committed to helping protect the environment by providing smart choice solutions to help customers reduce energy use and lower their carbon footprint. Get a rebate up to $600 off qualifying high-efficiency natural gas appliances, smart thermostats, and weatherization upgrades. Together, we're fueling our energy future. Atmos Energy, your natural gas company.
To recap your time at New Hope, so this is why the 43-0 record is, it was both a Mississippi record and a national record. Back in 1996, when you guys went 43-0, you won over 550 games at New Hope. The most wins by an undefeated team in high school baseball history was the 43-0 record. You were named Mississippi and National Coach of the Year while at New Hope, Groundskeeper of the Year in 1996. You guys had a winning streak of 68 consecutive games against the Mississippi teams. It was quite the streak. And then you mentioned about going to Brandon. You guys had some really good teams at Brandon. And you were so close on so many occasions.
So many. You know, when I first got here, Coach Peterson said, hey, there's some talent here. You need to make sure it's developed. And so I did. It was different because, I'm always hands-on on the field. And my first year here, we were ranked number 1 in the state. At the end of the year, we were ranked number 1 in the state. And it's like, boy, I didn't know we were going to turn around this fast, you know what I'm saying? But you got some really good players, but my best pitcher got hurt. Tyler Rachel got hurt. Pitches against, somebody late in the season, so that kind of hurt us where we lost in the playoffs. It seemed like every time Brandon would get to the playoffs, something would happen. Either we quit hitting or a pitcher would get hurt. Something would happen. I remember one year, one of my best pitchers, Chad Butcher, he played football too, and he dove on his shoulder and hurt his arm. And that year as a pitcher, when I had good hitters, he couldn't even pitch. He was done, for that year. It's like, but, even the year that I told you JT Ginn was such a stud pitcher for me. He threw a no-hitter his last game. The ball never got out of the infield. We lost 1-0. I mean, we just couldn't hit. When you don't have hitters, but you got great pitchers, then there's still a lot of pressure on you as the offense to get something done. And, of course, we played some really, really good teams. I mean, we saw some Division I kids, some of them now in the pros, playing from Oak Grove and Petal and George County and Biloxi, and I mean, it just goes on and on, some of the people we play, So it was really, really competitive because that was my first taste of the highest level. At New Hope, we were right underneath the highest level, and we beat some really good teams back in the day, from Northwest Rankin to Oak Grove and Petal, and that was before they got to be bigger classified. But I had some really good teams. But anyway, it was fun to go to Brandon, and I just realized that, hey, it's time to get out. But after that, like I said, I went to a few private schools before I landed at this one.
So you're at Manchester?
Manchester and Yazoo City.
In Yazoo City. And back on April 16th of 2024, you won your 1,000th game.
That's
1,000 wins. Now, when you hear that now, after all the stops, you mentioned at Brandon, and then a couple private schools after that, and now you're at Manchester. 1,000 wins, that's
a lot.
That's rare air, Coach.
When I was at Brandon, I had won my last year. I won my 800th game. I remember everybody going ooh and ahhing because some people were getting honored for winning their 200th or 300th. And they said, 800th win. So, I remember Coach Polk, when he had won a lot of games, he said, well, if you stay in it long enough and you got good kids, that's going to happen. So I kind of kept it in perspective. I said, good Lord, if you want me to continue to coach, and there's several times that I mentioned to you earlier that I thought maybe I would get out of coaching, but it always never did pan out. Like after 43-0, I talked to Pat McMahon at Mississippi State. I said, is it time, could I get into college coaching? Because a lot of people have asked me, why didn't I get into college coaching with the success I had? I don't think God wanted me to. I mean, because I tried to go to state. He picked another guy from Florida, where his hometown was, and he came in. It didn't work out for that guy, but that was my shot. It didn't work out. After I was fired at New Hope, I applied for the East Mississippi job, which is a junior college. It didn't work out. So it's like every time that door maybe I thought would be open, a little crack in it, it was always shut. And so I said, okay, I'll just keep coaching. And so I guess, and because of my system and the number of games, and a lot of people say, why do you play so many games? Baseball is meant to play a lot of games. Before I got to Manchester, they didn't have as many games. And of course, the parents love to see their kids play. What about kids? Wouldn't you rather play a game than go practice? You know, kids would. So we've averaged, 31 wins in my 3 years at Manchester, state championship, state runner-up, and then last year we were 31, this past year 31-5. So, even on a down year, so to speak, after losing several good seniors the year before last when we won the state, we still had a 31-win season, which is good. Now, I'm always thinking of, guys that's got to replace those guys, and that's really the hard part. It's kind of like you start over every year. And it's like, okay, we got to teach, but it's all about teaching. And it's kind of like, I probably enjoy the teaching. I tell people now, I coach because I enjoy it now. I don't have to. I got my years in public school. Like if you're in a public school now, you got to get 30 years in if you just started a few years ago. Well, that's a long time to think about. I got to really do this. If you go around some kids that don't want to work, or you're around some parents that always got excuses, and that's kind of tough on a coach. And I do feel sorry for some coaches that let that bother them. But because I was successful, and I felt like that, hey, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing because I'm successful, and administrators knew I was successful. That's why I've always kind of been able to get another job, because, people want you to make their kids winners, and so it's just been a good ride. Like I said, I'm at one of those like Boatner, 45 years at West Lauderdale. Rex Berryman, who's second in wins in the state, all his years were at Morville. Watkins, who's right behind me, all his years were at Petal, just about. But I've had to kind of jump around, to 6 different schools to get my wins, And so, but it seems like everywhere I've been able to get those kids to buy in, and then we're successful,
Here's a snapshot. You talk about your system, your work ethic, and your career. Here's the illustrious career. People love when I read this off to them. An overall career record of 1,003 wins against only 280 losses, 6 state championships at 3 different schools, 25 total division titles. You're inducted into the Sun Belt, Delta State, Coaches Halls of Fame, the Crossroads Diamond Club Hall of Fame, 16 national rankings, many more honors and accolades that we've detailed so far. When you hear that now and you go back to growing up on a farm, going back to the conversation talking about your dad and the work ethic, your dad living vicariously through you, and you also putting dad's practices in place, and you hear all these accolades and everything now, what comes to your mind?
Tears.
Really?
It's pretty special to, I guess, dedicate your life to one sport, like I've done, and to take the, some of the criticism you take from parents. But at the end of the day, it's just about making kids, play the game that I love and that they love, because, it takes a special kid to get out there and practice 3 or 4 hours a day. It's a different sport. I tell people all the time, it's the hardest sport to play, because there's a lot of standing around, a lot of patience, a lot of self-discipline. The mental part is what I fight now more than anything, because kids do not want to think. I tell people all the time, cell phones have helped ruin our kids.
Yes.
Because they don't remember anything. Yes. They can always get a text message from their parents. They can always get a text message from coaches saying, hey, we're going to change practice today, or the game's been moved. It's not like you've got to think. And so I'm fighting that, because now I got kids that say, hey, I can't remember. I've got kids that don't remember, even now don't remember what I taught them last year.
Gracious.
So, it's just a constant battle, but because I love it, and because that's what my wife says, kind of, why do you keep doing it? it's in my blood, and if I can help change a life along the way, that makes it even better. So by you saying that, I said, yeah, the wins have been great. It kind of puts a stamp on you being a good coach. But I don't think I've ever went in there saying, I want to be the best coach there is. I just want to, I guess, find my own little niche and say, okay, I've coached a long time, I got some wins, but yet, if I'm going to be able to keep doing this, why not just keep coaching and doing what you like to do? And because I don't have to now, because of the enjoyment of what I see out of kids getting better, I even signed up this year to coach girls fast pitch softball. I've never coached softball in my life. They couldn't find a softball coach. So I'm at 65 and a half, when people are getting ready to retire and live an easy life, I'm just going to coach girls next week with practice for 4 months, you know what I'm saying? But that's fine. I have 4 girls. I have 9 grandkids. 8 of those are girls. I'm a girl guy. And I coach boys. Yeah, I'm a girl dad. My daughter got me a shirt. I wear it all the time, girl dad. But I don't let people see the tender side of me, because I told my kids my first year at Manchester, I was so tough on them, trying to get them to become players instead of Bad News Bears. That's what we were early. Until I got them to understand how to work, how to catch and throw and hit, And I told them at the banquet, I said, I love you guys. And like, oh my gosh. But I tell people, I have a tough love. It's like, I'm gonna love on you, but my loving is to say, hey, good job, way to work, way to hustle, way to do this, way to do that. I mean, I don't just go pat you on the back if you catch a fly ball, because everybody's supposed to do that, you know what I'm saying? But I do have that tough love where I make them work hard, and I understand that, hey, you do have to sometimes put your arm around them and say, hey, you did a great job. And I do that. A lot of times parents just see that me, getting on kids. They don't see the fact that behind the scenes, I also tell them, you're doing a great job, keep working. You keep working, you might get a chance to go play college baseball, And that's what I try to do for kids, I can't tell you, I've had to go play college ball, which is very important for me because they are prepared. I can't tell you how many kids come back and say, Coach, you prepared me for college baseball. I appreciate it. Because, hey, if you're not prepared for college, they're going to run you off in a hurry, You're not going to be able to make it, because that's their livelihood. It's mine too, but, when you got to go recruit kids every year and that kid doesn't work out, they can say, okay, time for you to leave, I'll get another kid in here, Kind of like way it is now at colleges now, all the transfer portals and all the NIL money. If you don't produce, you're out.
You're out of there.
You're gone.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
It has often been said that home is where the heart is. It's where hard-working and dedicated people form the fabric of a thriving community. At Covington County Hospital, it's our priority to help keep our community safe, healthy, and moving. With our primary care clinics and services, we are working to keep you healthy. Because home is where the heart is. Home is where family matters. Covington County Hospital, where your health care matters.
At Atmos Energy, we believe affordable, reliable, and efficient natural gas is essential to achieving a low-carbon energy future. We're committed to helping protect the environment by providing smart choice solutions to help customers reduce energy use and lower their carbon footprint. Get a rebate up to $600 off qualifying high-efficiency natural gas appliances, smart thermostats, and weatherization upgrades. Together, we're fueling our energy future. Atmos Energy, your natural gas company.
Our farm's amber waves of grain become your tasty creations in the kitchen. From a bushel of wheat comes the flour you need to enjoy the breads, cakes, cereals, and pastas we all love so much. And even if you aren't a world-renowned chef, wheat grown in Mississippi is used in many of the foods you buy on the grocery store shelves. Wheat, just one of the many commodities a Mississippi farmer grows for you. The Farm Families of Mississippi.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
Seeing the emotion, it reminds me of, I've heard several former players a lot, because you and I have known each other for a long time now.
Yeah.
A lot of former players talk about, yeah, he was hard on me, but you were more concerned about them as a person than
Absolutely.
whether or not they could hit a curveball or whether or not they could, get 10 or 15 strikeouts a game, whatever the case was. You were more focused on them as a person. So it's interesting to see the emotion and remember all these players saying that about you, about how you were concerned about them as a person and their character.
That's that Coach Ferris influence.
Yeah.
He loved his players. He kept up with them. I don't know all my kids, my players' kids. I don't know all that. I don't know their birthdays. I mean, I still, because I'm a workaholic, I still do all kind of stuff, I still love working on fields and making them better. I still love, to see people's reaction when you come in, even our own people, when you do a lot of work on your field and they come in and say, hey, this field is beautiful, So it gives us a sense of pride, and that's kind of all part of the process,
Mm-hmm.
When I was at New Hope, when we built that field, every year I did a major project that those kids could take part in, and they could say, hey, I'm the one that put the warning track in. I'm the one that helped put the irrigation system in. I'm the one that had to go plug little pieces of Bermuda grass into a Behalia outfield that I just sprayed, and it was nothing out there but dirt, So it was like these kids had a part of our facility, and they can come back and say, hey, I helped do this. And that's, again, it's a pride thing. Kids want to, and people say, well, you're real prideful. I don't know about that. I just take pride in what I do and our success, getting the kids to play hard. And if that's too much pride, I'm sorry. Have I been shot down before? Oh yeah, many times. But at the end of the day, I always bounce back, and I always say, hey, I can still coach this game, so let's go influence a few more kids, no matter if it's a public or private school.
Yeah, you can still coach. You're currently the winningest active high school baseball coach in Mississippi. You mentioned Boatner, 1,202 wins, and then Rex Berryman, who won 1,068 games.
Right.
You going to hang around long enough to grab one of those guys,
I've had people at Manchester ask me that. I say, you know what? You never know what God's got in store for you.
Mm-hmm.
I have some other schools that have said, would you be interested in other schools? And I say, you know what? I like Manchester. Only negative, you got to drive all the time. And with the people on the roads nowadays, you don't know what you're going to come into. But I do like it over there. They have really accepted the fact that, hey, because Hester's coming here and he's worked hard and we've seen results, then they're happy. Now, they're still parents. Listen, parents, I understand. When you have a little child, I only got one grandson, and he is spoiled rotten by his mom and my daughter. And I understand when you get on somebody's son who's your, love of your life, I understand why they get mad. But it's not, that's why I tell them, don't take it personal. I'm just trying to get your kid's attention because I'm responsible for your kid getting better. I am, not your parent. You know what I'm saying? You can encourage your child. But at the end of the day, if you're not good, if State wasn't good this year, who are they going to look at? Lamona's.
Mm-hmm.
So our job is to make sure every year those kids get the best you can out of those kids every year, So I understand where mamas get upset when I get on their kid. I do understand that. Is it going to change? 43-0, guess what? I don't think I got upset very much that year. I tell people all the time, those kids bought into they were with me as a freshman. They saw everything that happened, and I was real tough. When you got kids to choose from, that's the difference in private school now. I don't have the kids to choose from that I had at New Hope and Brandon. I had 35 kids. If you don't produce, guess what? somebody else is going to be given a chance because I'm not a political coach, you remember? So as these small schools, you kind of got to stick with kids even though you know they need to be on the bench to get their attention. But I understand when mamas get upset because I get on their kid or put them on the bench for a little while, you know? And so it's just one of those things where, hey, you know, baseball is a simple game. I mean, if you can count to 7, you kind of got it figured out. You know, 7 innings, 4 balls, 3 strikes, 3 outs an inning. It's a simple game, you know? And I hate to say it, but a lot of people understand the game. They think they can coach it better than coaches can. So it's kind of on the negative end, but look, they don't bother me. I've been in it so long, I said there's nothing you're going to say or do to me that I hadn't already seen. And I don't try to be mean to them. It's just that, again, I coach your kid. I don't coach you, you know what I'm saying? And so parents know how I am. They try to get in with you to try to give their kid favoritism.
Sure.
I'm going to treat everybody the same. It doesn't matter what your last name. That's what I told people at Brandon. It doesn't matter what your last name is, who you are, how much money you make. I'm going to play the best kids based on what I see in practice. If that's not the way it should be, I don't need to be here. I mean, you know, I don't need to be anywhere if that's the way it's going to be. So, but it's, like I said, it's been really good. I've got thick skin, and I'm hard-headed, and I am the coach that makes out the lineup. You know, I am the guy that got the pen. You know,
an illustrious career so far. So my final question for you: you've written so many successful chapters in your personal life, and we talked about it. Winningest active high school baseball coach right now in Mississippi, 3rd all time. What chapters does Stace Hester still want to write?
You know, when I knew Coach Bolton when he was younger, he was at West Lauderdale. By the middle of his years at West Lauderdale, we'll go back to an alumni game at Delta State. He was a Delta State guy. Watkins, that pedal, was the Delta State guy. I think Rex Berryman, a lot of these guys were Delta State guys. McClaskey went to Delta State at Northwest Rankin. And Bolton always says, I'm one of the winningest high school coach in Mississippi baseball history. I said, okay, good, Coach. I mean, I'm not going to question that. He's at a great place that could do that. So for me, if God gives me the ability to coach, and that's why the people at Manchester have asked me, how long are you going to coach? Because when I first came there, I said I'd like to at least get to 1,000 wins. And we've accomplished that. But you know, I still enjoy it. I still enjoy seeing kids get better. I mean, I might coach 10 more years. You can't ever tell. I'm 65, but again, I feel like I can still contribute. It's not like I can't. I still throw batting practice to the kids, you know. I still hit infield, outfield to them all the time, you know. So it kind of keeps you active, what you need to do. So I'm trying to stay healthier. I just like to eat too much, but yet, you know, I love to see kids practice and get better. And as long as the schools let me do that, who knows, Bolton might have to be looking over his shoulder pretty soon. I mean, because again, part of playing games is if you win, you know, like I said, I've averaged in 35 full seasons, 1,003 wins. That's almost 29 wins a year. You know, that's not a bad average, you know what I'm saying? Never have had a losing season. And so for that, I'm very thankful. A lot of things I can say, but again, it's not me. I tell people it's my kids, but by getting your kids to do that, it's a reflection of what I've been able to motivate them to do or get them to buy into what I'm selling. And I think that's all part of it. If the kids want to work and be successful, that's what I tell them. If you play something, why don't you try to be as good as you can be? Why don't you try to win? It's not more fun to win than it is losing, you know. And a few times that I did lose at New Hope, I had a parent say, Coach, the kids aren't having fun. And I said, because they're not winning like they should be winning. You know what I'm saying? And it bothers them because they're not winning, because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So having fun is winning. And I've just been blessed to be able to have a lot of wins compared to, and one of my headmaster Manchester the other day said, how have you lost 280 games? I said, it wasn't my bid. I remember more of the losses than I do the wins, you know what I'm saying? Because you always can go back and say, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better to make those kids win the game? So, but it has been fun to change the mindset that everywhere I've been, the school's saying, in the parents saying, Coach, our kids have never done this before, you know, and they kind of say thank you, but they don't really come out and say, and a lot of them do, say thanks for helping our kids become better kids, a better program. So at the end of the day, you know I set a good foundation for Brandon, and I know that, you know, they got some good players. They probably got a lot better players to choose from than I did back when I coached. But, you know, that's all good, but it's all part of it. I had a little bit to do with it, so, hey, that's part of my life story.
An incredible career so far, and I hope we get to do part 2 down the road when you did hang around long enough to catch Coach Boatner. So thank you for doing this. I appreciate you joining us.
You're awesome, and we've had a good relationship, and I just appreciate you doing this because letting people know. So it's been an honor for me.
Appreciate it, Coach. Thank you. Did you meet everybody? This is Matthew. This is Patrick. So, Coach, we come into these I come right into them firing because we'll do an open.
Well, you might have to tell me to shut up because I'm not short on words. When I get started, oh my gosh, I talk.
You could be long-winded in the digital version. TV, we might have to cut it down.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week for another episode of Audibles with Jason Scarborough.